What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel Hand Waving. Your friend Naruto Addict 2.0 is here again with a brand new Naruto fanfic that's going to change everything. Today's fanfic is titled, What if Naruto joined Sakura and Ino's baby mission, and built the funniest harem ever? Part 2. Let's start this fanfic. That doesn't make sense, Shika said, looking and sounding much too like his father for Sakura's comfort. Sakura sighed and turned away. She had been thinking of Ino in that way for a while, but Ino hadn't really seemed like she was doing the same. Sure, odd kisses on the cheek were exchanged, along with the casual hug, but Ino had always been affectionate. And then there was the twins to think about. If Sakura started something and Ino rejected her, it would make parenting awkward. She tried to think of an answer to the child that was focused intently on her. Yeah, I want her to be my girlfriend. Shika smiled and jumped down off the bench and retook her hand. That's great. I've had lots of girlfriends, I can teach you how to get Auntie Ino as your girlfriend. Sakura laughed lightly. Shika seemed extremely serious, which made her laugh more. She did wonder why he was so understanding about gay couples, but put it down to Temari and Shikamaru raising their son with an open mind. Ah, Shika, don't you think it's weird that I want your Auntie Ino to be my girlfriend? She asked to satisfy her curiosity. No, Shika said absently, since the park was in sight now. Auntie Ino is really cool. She lets me get away with things that my mum would kill me over. Everyone likes Auntie Ino. Yeah, but we're both girls, Sakura probed again. Auntie Ino always kisses girls, Shika said scornfully at Sakura's dimness. Sakura jerked to a stop, but it didn't matter as Shika had already let go of her hand and was running towards the jungle gym. Ino always kissed girls. Sakura's thoughts screeched to a stop at that bombshell. Ino was gay. When did Ino turn gay? Sakura-chan. Skika called, already on top of the monkey bars, watch me swing. I can even skip a bar. Sakura watched the boy, then quickly ran to steady him when he teetered and looked like he was about to let go. I forgot that I usually only did this when I was on my dad's shoulders. Shika grinned down at her and settled on her shoulders in order to get comfortable. There were no other kids in the park, which made Sakura Shika's only playmate. She was dodging behind a seesaw at half speed with Shika laughing exuberantly trying to catch her, when a male nurse ran up to her. Sakura instantly recognized him as Yuki, a nurse that worked in the emergency room. He looked panicked and his chest was heaving erratically as he bent over and rested on his knees trying to get a breath. What's wrong? Sakura asked, her smile dropping as she went quickly to his side. Shika frowned but had enough sense to know that this was important and so stayed silent. Sakura-sama, the hospital, he couldn't get enough air into his lungs to explain. Sakura forced him to stand up straight and take deep breaths. In a few seconds his breathing was almost normal. Now tell me what's wrong. A bandit camp was attacked last night. Their leader applied for our help and we sent an ambulance team to retrieve the wounded and brought the severe cases back. It was a trick, Sakura-sama. They're holding the hospital hostage. Police are there, but he looked at her pleadingly and she nodded. It was her hospital and her staff. Has anyone been injured? She asked. He shrugged. I came to get you as soon as I heard the screaming. I was close to the doors and managed to get out. Please help Sakura-sama. It was her hospital and her staff, and she would be damned if she let anyone hurt them. Her eyes turned to steel and she began to march at a fast pace towards the hospital. It wouldn't do to make too much noise when arriving, or she would give up the element of surprise. She noticed that a lighter tread no less determined than her own at her side. Shika had his young chubby face set in a fierce grimace, or as fierce as a child's grimace could be. Sakura then remembered her responsibilities to Shika. She looked at Yuki, who was jogging to match her tread. When we get there, take care of Shika. Don't let him get hurt. She glared until Yuki nodded furiously. The hospital was cordoned off and police ninjas were outside along with a strong throng of outraged onlookers. Word spread quickly that the legendary Sakura had arrived and people nudged each other and cheered. So much for not causing too much noise by her arrival. What's the situation? She asked the closest police officer. We've counted 5 altogether. Anbu is prepped and ready to go, but 3 have hostages, so we're proceeding with caution, the officer said, not even looking at her. They want someone to go in and negotiate the terms. Captain just chose someone now, he's gearing up. She nodded and checked where Yuki and Shika were in the crowd. She waved at them to stay back, then strolled out past the police barriers. She heard the angry voices of police scream at her and she half turned back. The police's one shut up and began to silently panic. They would be held responsible if the village treasure died. The crowd, on the other hand, gave a giant roar of support headed by Shika, who jumped on Yuki's shoulders and screamed in his high-pitched voice. Sakura walked confidently up to the shut double doors of the room. She poked her head in first with a smile. You wanted a mediator. The was sealed off from the rest of the hospital by beds and machine equipment. She swore if Anbu busted into this room and ruined all that expensive medical equipment, she was going to kill them. The 3 men held knives close to their human shields' throats and stood behind them, cleverly using them as cover. One had a crossbow aimed at her and the other was ransacking her drugs locker. She felt irritation mount up as the man's sweaty, beefy hands fondled and shoved her precious medicine into a black bag without thought. She kept her smile in place as she identified the one trying to glare a hole through her as the leader. She looked at his hostage and felt her irritation soar through the top of her head. Her damn secretary. What the hell are you doing here? Do you ever take a day off? Her secretary blushed as the man with the knife to her throat tightened his grip, angry that she had talked to the hostage. This is my day off, see? I'm in normal clothes. Sakura frowned as she realized her brown-haired secretary was in jeans and a frumpy brown pullover jumper. Then why are you here? Sakura asked, annoyed, crossing over to the drug cabinet. Hey, stop right there. The leader yelled at her in a timbre voice. She stopped at the window of the locker and raised her hands none threateningly. Hey, I'm just here to get you guys what you want so you leave without any trouble. I swear if I see any nasty ninja tricks from you, I'll make this one a new smile, got it? He threatened. Boss, that's the legendary Blossom, one of the man's cohorts whispered, also in possession of a hostage. When you became famous and had a name like Sakura, you got stuck with an obvious legend name. I don't care, she's just a girl and seems to like this one. His grip on her secretary tightened to the point she gagged. He reassessed her, seeming to think she got the warning. Is this your list of demands? Sakura asked, non-perturbed by her secretary's abuse. She looked at the foreign scrawl that was just as bad as any doctor's handwriting. They had used a patient's chart to write down their demands. Her eyes caught on the information and she picked the chart up and accidentally knocked over some jars. She straightened them with one hand absently while she shouted and glared about the room. Who put Mr. Ramda on glucose? He's a diabetic, for God's sake. She shook her head in misery at the incompetence. That doesn't matter. The leader said, his dark brown hair kept back by a red bandana the gang all seemed to wear. Take that out to the police and get us the stuff and we'll be on our way, he sneered, just like you wanted. Sakura nodded but didn't look up from the demands or pay any attention to the man's growl. She turned to a junior attending doctor with luscious dark hair that she had to find out the secret off before this was over. She pulled a pen of the woman's white coat and watched as she blushed at her hand being so close to her chest. She grinned. She liked it when people got flustered around her. This isn't going to happen, she said, scoring off the demand for a private ninja concubine. These are doable, she nodded, scribbling away. But the Hokage would never agree to give you any of the secret scrolls. Why would you want them anyway? You can't use ninjutsu. Our big boss wants them and you'll get them for us if you know what's good for you. He again strangled the secretary and Sakura's face went from pleasant to cold. If you so much as leave a bruise on any of these hostages, I will come after you and kill you. She didn't believe in elaborate threats. Her glazier gaze seemed to convince him of her intentions better than any prettily worded slaughter could. He eased up on his grip but his didn't waver. Get us the scrolls. Hey, Sakura said, suddenly very pleasant. She dropped the chart with a loud clatter and watched as the invader's muscles tensed. What did you mean earlier by nasty ninja tricks? The leader frowned and couched behind the secretary more. You know, like smoke bombs are melting through the floor to get us. I gave these people the same warning. Sakura looked around at the cowering hostages. Most were old or injured, but all glared at the thugs with malevolence. You know, it's a common misconception that everyone in a ninja village can fight. I mean, look at these people. Do you think if they could all use ninjutsu for violence they wouldn't team up and go after you? The thug was starting to become edgy and Sakura felt her smile widen. Unfortunately for you, I happen to be very good at violence. I also take it that one of those nasty ninja tricks you were talking about is my ability to release an airborne virus capable of causing paralysis in its designated targets. What? The leader said, alarmed. You can't do that. It's impossible. Sakura knew that a shadow had passed over her face. She knew that in her eyes were reflected 1,000 battles, 1,000,000 deaths, and more knowledge than she ever wanted. The grin that seemed automatic and forced, giving her face an eerily quality that made everyone in the room shudder and shrink away, friend or foe. Nothing's impossible. Go on, try to move, you two as well. She gestured to the other thugs that held hostages and saw their eyes widen in shock. In a few seconds the paralysis will travel up your neck and into your head. Enjoy blinking while you can. She saw the leader swing his head back and forth and knew he was trying to get his body to move. He was either trying to stab the secretary or escape. Either way, he couldn't do anything. He swung his head to the crossbow man. Shoot her. The crossbow man jerked at the harsh command, giving Sakura the second she needed. Oh, I don't think so, she said and stomped on the ground with part of her strength. The resulting sonic boom was enough to fling everyone to the ground, but not enough to shatter the windows because she did not nearly have the budget to cover that. A second later there was two shadow clones of Sakura, one gripped the now crossbow-less man and the other gripping the fat man that had ransacked her medicine cabinet. She took equal joy in flinging them both out the double doors and into the arms of the waiting police. She then went to help the hostages that were trapped in the paralyzed arms of the thugs. Her secretary was the last person she reached. Her round glasses were cracked, but she seemed unharmed otherwise. Sakura-sama, can you actually release airborne viruses and control them? The secretary asked, breathless in her awe. Sakura laughed and shook her head as she helped her to her feet. No, my friend taught me to draw. I simply drew 3 small mice and had them bite the men with the hostages. I inked them with a nectine that I got in the drugs cabinet when I, accidentally, knocked over the vials. It caused paralysis after 1 minute. It's not that long lasting though. The odd look didn't go away and Sakura felt really proud of herself. From Sai she learned to draw, though she could only get the mice to come alive, and from Naruto she had learned to bluff. Through her they were still saving people and that made her happy. K. A voice shouted behind her and then suddenly her secretary was on the floor with a crying attending on her chest. K. That was her secretary's first name. Sakura searched her memory and realized to her embarrassment that she didn't even know the secretary's last name. Yuna. Don't make a scene in front of the chief. Kay said, trying to crawl away bravely while the dark-haired attending that Sakura had borrowed the pen from continued to wail and bury her face in her secretary's neck. Friend of yours, Kay-san. Sakura said, eyeing the crying mess with amusement. Fiancé. Kay mumbled with embarrassment and Sakura blinked stunned. Well, she really didn't know that much about her secretary. Which was sad, as that was the person she had seen and talked to most for the last few years, excluding Tenten and more recently Ino. The police had moved in to arrest the other 3 thugs and Sakura shouted at them to make sure they didn't break anything in her. Everyone stopped as the double doors burst open and Ino stood framed in the doorway with Shika grinning wildly at her side. Sakura, you were so awesome. Shika cheered. Sakura didn't hear that because Ino was looking at her as if she had cut down every cocoa bean tree in the world and personally drank the last cup of coffee. Ino, she tried to grin. Ino stalked towards her and the quick as lightning slapped her hard across the cheek. How dare you? I made sure Shika was okay. I didn't put him in danger. Honest. Sakura said, cowering. She felt her reputation of savior taking a rapid nosedive. Who cares about Shika? Ino screamed, furious, on the verge of slapping Sakura again. Shika's annoyed. Hey, went unnoticed. What if you died? I would have been all alone with twins. What would I have done then? Damn it, Sakura, I don't want you to die. And Ino collapsed into her arms, hugging and strangling her in turns. Sakura held on to the crying blonde, puzzled beyond belief. She looked at the people surrounding her that were obviously listening but pretending they weren't. She took Shika's hand and proceeded to guide Ino out of the occasionally accepting the odd hit that the blonde remembered to give. Is that normal? Yuna asked, watching them go. Oh, yeah, Kay said lightly, they do that a lot. Shika was snoozing on the couch after dinner. The boy had valiantly tried to stay awake at the table but kept nodding off. Sakura had finally given in and carried him to the sofa for him to sleep. They had spent the rest of the day reenacting the hospital takeover, only it was Shika's turn to take on the big bad while Sakura, wearing a black bag as a cape, tried to stop him. When she had asked about the black bag, she had been scornfully told that every bad guy had a cape. She smiled and pushed the dark, unruly hair out of the sleeping boy's eyes. It had been fun today. Shika grumbled and rolled over, twisting the large blanket that dwarfed him and kept him warm. Is he asleep? Ino asked, coming out from the kitchen drying a plate. Sakura nodded and padded silently to the blonde's side. Ino retreated into the kitchen, still drying dishes. You okay now? Sakura asked. Ino hadn't really spoken to her since she stormed out of the hospital. She had made sure that Sakura was in her line of vision the whole afternoon when she was making dinner. It had meant that Sakura's nefarious plans to take over the village had been confined to the living room, but she and Shika didn't mind if it meant Ino didn't worry. I'm sorry, Ino said with her back to Sakura, I just seem to keep freaking out. I never freaked out so much before I got pregnant. I swear I was easygoing back then. Sakura gazed off to the side as she remembered the various competitions for Sasuke's affection that she and Ino had been involved in. And how Ino had screamed at Shuho for being an idiot, and how she would curse Shikamaru for being a slob, and then how she would slap Tamari for being which was before they became best friends. And she had scared the crap out of Naruto. Well, you weren't pregnant back then, just extremely hormonal, which she would never say because she liked her head on her shoulders. What if I do that when they're born? Ino fretted. What if I'm that mom that screams at their kids on the jungle gym? Or worse, the one that follows their kids around with a fully stocked first aid box. Sakura laughed and embraced Ino from behind. She set her chin on the blonde's shoulder and squeezed her softly to reassure her. Ino, we both know you're going to be the cool mom and I'm going to be the worrier that's scared of everything. Ino seemed to think this over. Well, I am cooler than you, she said matter-of-factly, and Sakura rolled her eyes. Ino really would believe anything if it was a compliment. She stood there holding Ino, moving softly with her when she went to put the dishes away instead of releasing her hold. Ready for bed? Ino asked, and Sakura nodded, regretfully breaking away. She didn't think Ino would let her cling on to her when she went to get changed, even though she wanted to. She immediately missed Ino's warmth. Sakura was about to succumb to sleep when Ino turned towards her in the bed. The blonde traced her cheek in the dark and Sakura looked at her sleepily. You're amazing, you know, Ino said in the quiet, and Sakura rolled her eyes and paid her no attention. Ino said it again, more sincerely this time. No, you really are. Not many people would walk into the middle of a crisis zone and take out the bad guys. You didn't even think of the danger, you were more worried about the people. And then you come back here and play with Shika like you didn't just save so many lives. That's amazing, Sakura. I was more annoyed at them, Sakura said, thinking Ino was giving her too much credit. She burrowed into her pillow. The mattress shifted and Sakura looked up. Ino hovered over to her and kissed her cheek softly. Sakura blushed and turned towards the heat. Their lips were only centimeters apart. Amazing, Ino breathed, and Sakura couldn't. She held her breath until Ino lay back down on her side. Good night, Sakura, Ino said, and Sakura had the distinct impression that she was smiling. Got everything? Sakura asked Shika. The little boy nodded and passed his backpack to Sakura to carry. Ino had left for her shift at the flower shop, so Sakura had to drop him off before she headed off to work. She needed to the damage those idiots had caused the day before. Right, let's go. She opened the door and ushered the boy out. So, How are you going to get Auntie Ino to fall in love with you? Shika asked when they stepped outside. Sakura was startled that he actually remembered their conversation. I'm going to take her to a play. It opens tomorrow, she said, proud of her plan. Shika was less than impressed and rolled his eyes. That's boring, you should give her cookies. They always work for me. I'll keep that in mind, she humored him, then bent down and scooped him up and sat him on her shoulders. He squealed with delight and wrapped his arms around her head. She just didn't want to lose him in the thickening crowd, and he seemed to be enjoying it. She knocked on the door to Shikamaru's house. The door was yanked open in surprise and Sakura stepped back as a raven-haired girl in a towel answered. Sakura glared at her, suspecting the worst. She sat Shika down and said, I dropped the bag down the road, go get it. It's on your shoulder, Shika pointed out. Sakura took it off her shoulder and flung it down the road. She grinned at Shika's shocked face and pretended it was a game, go get it. I'll count to see how long it takes you. And he ran off after the bag. Sakura turned her attention to the girl in the doorway and grabbed a fistful of her towel and dragged her forwards with a growl. I don't care who you are, but if you're trying to mess up Shikamaru and Temari's relationship, I'll flatten you. They have a kid, for God's sakes. She glared at the home wrecker, who didn't seem bothered at the threat. A small hand came up to try and loosen her grip but couldn't. The raised her eyebrow in a very familiar expression. Women are so bothersome, she said in a husky voice, and Sakura let go, feeling like she should recognize the girl. Had she been in her class? Wow, Sakura, I didn't think you were such a romantic. The door opened wider and a blonde man in a towel grinned at her. He leaned on the door, showing off his muscular chest and glistening body to its fullest. Sakura felt herself blushing at the leer in the man's eyes as he looked down at her. She felt flustered for some reason. Then it clicked. Temari. She looked at the dark-haired that she had threatened, Shikamaru. Temari laughed and Shikamaru gave a small smile. She felt like an idiot for not realizing sooner. The same features were apparent, but the different threw her totally. But how did they? Her face hardened. Ino showed you my jutsu, that's why she wanted to know the seals. Don't worry, Sakura, we have no plans on stealing it. It was only for a bit of fun, right babe? Temari said, leaning down to kiss Shikamaru. The sight was so wrong to her. You better change back before you confuse Shika, she said as she spotted the boy running back with the bag. Oh, yeah, give us 5 minutes to get dressed, Temari said, dragging Shikamaru back into the house and slamming the door shut. Sakura turned to the child, mentally scared beyond belief. She choked her thoughts when they tried to veer towards what Shikamaru and Temari had been doing while she was babysitting. She just didn't want to know. When the door opened again, Temari was in her right form and fully dressed. So how did you like stay with Auntie Ino and Sakura-san? It was great. Sakura beat up these bad guys that tried to take over the hospital, Shika said excitedly. What? Temari said, her good mood starting to drain away. She glanced up at Sakura suspiciously. Well, I'll see you later. Sakura ran off, uncaring that she had left her dignity behind. Temari was scary when she was angry. Woo. Big update. I had a little extra time this week, so I thought I would treat the fans of this story as a thank you for so many encouraging reviews. You're keeping me on my toes and filled with a happy buzz. I got them, Sakura said as she flung open the door to the flower shop. Tamar turned from where she was leaning on the counter talking to Ino, who was arranging flowers in a vase. Sakura curbed her enthusiasm as she remembered Temari might want to kill her. Hey. What did you get? Temari said as Sakura cautiously entered the room. Tickets, Sakura said. Her gut was telling her that it was okay to relax around the blonde. 2. Temari prompted, amused. The play, The Blossom Bloom's Death, have you heard of it? She asked politely. Temari's eyes widened. You got tickets? They're not even on sale yet. Sakura knows the girl in the box office, Ino said, smiling, and Sakura beamed back automatically. Hey, I bet she could get you and Shika tickets too. We could all go together. Sakura tried to hide her frown. She could probably get the tickets easily, but she didn't want them to come with her and Ino. She had wanted to woo her. Please, Sakura, Ino said and reached across to touch her hand. She nodded. Sure. Guess that means I won't have to kick you for taking me kid into danger. Tamari laughed and slapped her on the back harder than Sakura thought was appropriate. And I won't have to kick yours for using my jutsu, Sakura replied. She gazed steadily at Ino, who flushed with guilt. It's only Shika, Ino said in her defense. Yeah, Sakura agreed, but in a tone that clearly meant that it still wasn't okay. Listen, I have to get back. My ER's been closed down and I have to supervise the reshuffling of patients until we get it up again. I won't be home for dinner. She left because she didn't want to argue and stress Ino out, but she still felt betrayed. Ino slinked into the apartment and Sakura didn't look up from watching TV. She waved towards the kitchen absently. Dinner's under the grill. Thanks, Ino said brightly, hoping she wasn't in trouble. The TV was the only sound in the room for the rest of the night. Ino had eventually migrated from the kitchen to the living room but felt she wasn't welcome on the couch and instead moved to the armchair. Sakura got up and placed the remote beside her without saying a word. She went in silence to the bathroom to brush her teeth and go to bed. Ino came in just as she finished changing into her pajamas. You're mad at me? Yeah, I am, Sakura said, climbing into bed. This silent treatment isn't fair. When I'm mad at you, I let you know it and we sort it out. I don't appreciate this passive-aggressive tactic, Ino said, and have the audacity to sound like she was the one wronged. Sakura glared at her. Like I can shout at you in your condition? I would rather punch you, but that wouldn't solve anything. And you know the worst part? You don't even think you've did anything wrong. Sakura, I'm pregnant, not made of glass, Ino said, annoyed, and something in Sakura snapped. She turned in a furious motion and surged off the bed. You don't get it. That entire sentence I said, you focused on the point that was about you. You taught your friends the jutsu I worked hard on and didn't even bother to ask me if it was okay. All the work that went into that was meaningless to you. You're selling it as a cheap toy. Ino reared back, not used to Sakura talking to her like that. Well, what else would you call it? Sakura froze, then looked down and seemed to collect herself. She gave a self-deprecating smile and glanced up at Ino. She gave a short humorless chuckle and looked away. I thought you, forget it, never mind. She stood and walked past Ino towards the door. Where are you going? Ino demanded, not liking this new side of Sakura. Out, Sakura said, pulling on her shoes. You're still in your pajamas. Ino pointed out. Sakura shrugged. When will you be back? I won't be tonight, Sakura said and went to walk out the door, but Ino grabbed her arm and refused to let go. So, you're just running away? Ino said, getting furious. Sakura turned and raised her eyebrow at the blonde. You're getting indignant. You're the one in the wrong and you have the gall to be the one that's upset. I'm not the one running away. Ino snapped. Running away from what? Sakura said, piercing her with her intent eyes. What am I running away from? This argument, Ino said like it was obvious. No, Ino, I'm simply walking away from you, Sakura said levelly. I thought of all people you would understand why, but I guess I was seeing something that wasn't there. Fine, leave. Ino flung Sakura's arm from her and glared, see if I care. Sakura snorted and smiled grimly. Always about you, isn't it? She shut the door behind her and heard the thump as something heavy hit it. Did I overreact? Sakura asked Tenten, suddenly riddled with doubts. No, Ino is being selfish. It was your jutsu and she was the one that stopped you from making it public. You're the one who wanted to publish it to help people, Tenten said, dusting the bookshelf behind the counter. Okay, so it was also for selfish reasons because you wanted the fame and stuff, but that's not a crime. You did all the hard work, of course you would want some acknowledgement. Yeah. Sakura nodded, then sagged on her chair in front of the counter. She had borrowed Tenten's clothes after sleeping at the other girl's house. You know what annoyed me most of all? She didn't think she had did anything wrong and then she acted like the injured party. The bitch, Tenten agreed absently, picking up a clipboard and checking the stock. What should I do though? Sakura asked. Well, you want to get this sorted fast since you can't kick her out of your place and you need to live there, Tenten said, wondering why she had a hardback copy of the Second Great War, The Rise and Fall of Heroes. She picked it up and turned back to the counter. Oh, that's mine, Sakura said, reaching for the book only to have Tenten snap it away. What are you doing with this trash? The book was all about them and the war they fought in when they were younger. It had been agreed between the two not to look at any more of those so-called history books since they were usually, and insultingly, wrong. Especially in regards to Sakura, who took part in some of the climactic battles. That's where I put my final research report, Sakura said, opening it up. No one would think to look there for it since everyone knows how much I disdain these type of books. So much of those years were shrouded in rumor and exaggerated facts that it was easier to let the world believe it was more like the soap opera they portrayed it as than a devastating event that destroyed so much. I hate this one, Tenten said, glaring at the book. This is the edition that has me and Lee shacked up in a love triangle with Neji and you as a brunette and Naruto as a serious martyr. How are your guys anyway? Tenten was lucky enough to have both her teammates survive, though Guy didn't. He died fighting with Kakashi. Always in competition right until the end. Lee's starring in a new musical in the big city. Apparently he's a real hit. Can't walk down the street without being recognized, but you know how he exaggerates. And Neji, Tenten's eyes lost the warmth they had when she was talking about Lee. He's still on a mountain somewhere feeling sorry for himself. Like he was the only one that fought in the war. What they had done to survive wasn't their proudest achievements, but Neji seemed to take it the hardest. Sakura could only conclude that either he was more sensitive or he did something worse than the killing. Oh, shoot, talking about plays, I still have those tickets. Tickets? Tenten asked, taking a break from cleaning to sit down. Yeah, for that. The Blossom Bloom's death, Sakura said, watching as Tenten grimaced. I hated the ending in that, it was so depressing. Really? Ino loves it. I thought she would like happy stuff, Sakura said, and Tenten just shrugged. I'll see you later. I have to get those tickets. Sakura stood up and waved. Hey, are you still going tonight? Tenten asked. No, probably not, Sakura yelled as the door swung shut at a flurry of jingling bells. She made it to her office without running into Ino. She opened her top drawer and pulled out the 4 paper tickets. She then went out into the corridor and looked about for someone who wasn't busy. She spotted an intern crying at a candy machine. Just take the note. I don't have the correct change. Just take the goddamn note. He wailed, still trying to stuff a badly wrinkled note into the machine. Oh, that won't work, Sakura said, her voice filled with many years of knowledge trying to do the same thing. Nurse Betty usually keep a change drawer for situations like this. Make sure you have enough to buy her a peanut butter bar and she'll help you out. Chief. The intern snapped to attention and tried to smooth down his wrinkled scrubs. She knew he was mentally going over how tried and grubby he looked in his mind and cursing. She used to do that when Tsunade would surprise her. She smiled in understanding. I need you to deliver these to the Yumenka flower shop in town. You should grab something real to eat while you're there. Go to Old Man's Sandwiches, he gives discounts to interns. If you don't have the cash, put it on my tab, that old man has fed me since I was an intern. Thank you. The intern's eyes lit up at the possibility of real food. She knew that feeling as well. The intern then grew worried and cast a glance behind him. My resident. Don't worry, if you tell him I sent you there shouldn't be much trouble, Sakura said, ushering him away. Okay, thanks, Chief. He literally ran off to do her bidding. She remembered when she had the energy to work 27-hour shifts and still run at the possibility of a free meal. Oh, to be young again. She went back to her office. She noticed that she had a few loose ends that needed tidying up since the bandit attack. It was best to get them out of the way before the acting chief came on for his shift. She cursed as she read that her mild sonic boom had cracked some pipes in the wall and might have damaged the infrastructure of the operating room. Where the hell was she going to get the money for that? Exclamation mark. Wait, she had saved a plumber's wife last year. The family was only starting out their new business and didn't have the money to pay. She had let them go free of charge. She could ask him to do it as payment. She frowned. She didn't like the idea of calling in favors that she would have done regardless. But she couldn't risk the pipes bursting and closing down sections of the hospital. She would find out how his business was and give him a call. She made a mental note on a yellow sticky pad. Her intercom buzzed and she jumped in surprise. She had thought she was alone. She cleared her throat and answered, "Yes. Chief, Yumenka-san has been spotted storming into the building." There was hesitation and Sakura heard the unsaid, again. "Kei, what the hell are you doing here?" Sakura asked instead. "You got off the same time I did this morning." "I had some paperwork to catch up on," was the slightly defensive response. Sakura rolled her eyes but couldn't very well shout at the other woman when she had did the same thing. They both needed to get lives. "I'll deal with Ino when she gets here, please leave. I don't want this to be public." "Yes, Chief," the secretary said and buzzed out. Instead of the door bursting open like it had in past Ino tantrums, it was opened gingerly and it was a few minutes before Ino was brave enough to look around it. "Hey," Ino said tentatively. "Hello," Sakura said, putting her pen down. She folded her hands and sat up straight at her desk. Ino came hesitantly into the room. "Can I sit?" she asked, and Sakura nodded stiffly. "Listen, I didn't realize what I did was wrong. I still don't really think it was," Ino said, then hurried on as Sakura's eyes narrowed and she picked up her pen again. "But I do understand that it hurt you. And that this jutsu was important to you and I should have asked, if only to keep you from being hurt." Sakura sighed. "Ino. No. I get it, Sakura, I do. Well, I don't, but I realize that I hurt you and that's the last thing I want to do. It might not be important to me, but it was important to you and I should have considered your feelings. I'm a jerk," Ino said, looking apologetic, "but you have to forgive me because you've always been the smartest of us two and it's only fair." Sakura tried to stop the smile but Ino teased it out of her. "So am I forgiven?" Ino grinned. "I suppose," Sakura said reluctantly. Ino cheered and she came around the desk to hug Sakura. Sakura pushed at her but made sure that it was half-hearted because she didn't actually want the hug to stop. "So, you'll still come with us tonight?" Ino said hopefully. "Well, I have other plans," Sakura hedged. "Come on," Ino begged. "I really want to go with you." I, and she tried to think of an excuse, but the truth was she was lying. She didn't want Ino to think she was so sad that she had no other plans for a Saturday night. "Fine," she gave in and Ino squealed with joy. "Great. I can't wait to show you my dress." And with that Ino was gone. "So, what do you think?" Sakura turned and her eyes exploded. Or felt like they did anyway. She blushed in embarrassment. "What are you wearing?" "This is my little black dress." Ino smiled, lifting her leg, the dress parting beautifully around a cream calf and thigh. The dress itself came just below the blonde's knees but was slit high enough that it exposed both her legs, stopping just short of her panties. Ino was grinning at her from under her lashes and Sakura tried to stop her eyes from following all the way up her leg to her that seemed to be extra perky tonight. She failed horribly. Ino had on small black heels and the normally tall woman now towered over Sakura, reeking of. She tried to ogle discreetly when it became apparent that she couldn't resist. "Don't worry, Sakura, everyone wants to screw me in this dress." Ino patted her on the shoulder in a sisterly fashion. "Why are you wearing that then?" Sakura snapped, turning away to hide her flush. She did not blush well. She looked like a diseased tomato. "It's going to be a long time before I can fit into it again. It's already extremely tight," Ino said reasonably, using the mirror hanging over the TV to put on simply diamond earrings. She had already put on a diamond necklace in the shape of a star. It hung just below her collarbone and pointed the way downwards to her bountiful brie. "Stop it." Sakura shook herself. She was not leering at Ino. "Is that what you're wearing?" Ino said critically, and Sakura immediately became defensive. She was wearing a red Chinese-style dress with pink flowers twining about it. It wasn't as daring as Ino's dress, but it was nice enough. She hadn't been on a date in a sad amount of time. The hospital kept her busy. She groaned at the need to defend herself in her own head. That was bad. Next time Tenten offered to set her up, she was taking it. It might help her get over this Ino fixation. What's wrong with it? Besides, aren't you a little overdressed? Or underdressed considering her hormones? Nothing. Ino said, her eyes sliding to the side in a way that clearly said that it wasn't nothing. Sakura tugged at her hair self-consciously. Ino had put hers up in a decorative twist that framed her face. If Sakura did that, it would make her heart-shaped face look fat. She decided to leave it down and brushed it with a few quick swipes. Give me that. Ino rolled her eyes. She snatched the brush from Sakura and dragged her over to the bathroom for better light. She pushed Sakura down on the edge of the bath and stood in front of her. She ran her fingers through Sakura's hair. It's so soft. Ino bent down and brought her cleavage close to Sakura's face. She stiffened and smelt the perfume that Ino had dabbed there. It smells nice too, vanilla. I thought strawberries would be too much of a cliché. Sakura coughed, turning her head away when Ino straightened. She remembered how warm and heavy her felt in her hands. Ah, I suppose you're right, but I kind of like the idea of Sakura smelling like strawberries, Ino teased, brushing Sakura's hair. She pulled it into a ponytail, then gave a twist. She leant over to the sink and grabbed a handful of hairpins. She looked cute standing with a stern, concentrated look on her face and little brown pins sticking out of her mouth. There, stand up. Ino took Sakura's hands and guided her to her feet. She turned her towards the mirror and Sakura gasped and tried to touch her hair. Ino slapped her hand away playfully. Her hair was in a messy bun that looked artful instead of sloppy. 2 long strands of hair framed either side of her face. To take the bad look off that big forehead of yours, Ino laughed, but Sakura's indignant reaction was cut off by a kiss to her forehead. Ino quickly disappeared into their room, then out again. She came towards Sakura and wrapped a black scarf around her waist. She tied the knot off to the side, then slid 2 black bracelets on Sakura's wrists. The black breaks up the design and creates a new, more desirable look. The scarf also pulls the dress in and draws the eye to your. Sakura tried to laugh, but Ino was standing close enough that she could feel the heat of their bodies mixing. Thank you, oh fashion diva. Ino shrugged with a smile. I know what looks good on girls. I am fabulous. She popped her hand like a gay man in her hip. Sakura did laugh, leaning into the blonde. She looked up at the blonde, smiling. Ino looked very serious as she brought her hand up to cup Sakura's cheek. You're much prettier as a girl, she said softly, and the good mood drained from Sakura. Ino was stroking her cheek softly and Sakura angled her head to the side. She held her breath. Ino was going to kiss her, she just knew it. Isn't this a pretty picture? They both jerked their heads towards the door to see Temari standing in a purple dress with a smirk. Behind, Shikamaru was leaning against the door with his own smirk. He was dressed in a suit with a black tie, and since it was ironed, Sakura guessed Temari had bullied him into it. I've told you your timing sucks, right? Ino said, pulling away and grabbing a white bag. She draped it over her shoulder, then handed the still flustered Sakura a black clutch purse. Sakura took the bag and tried to act normal. Temari was having too much fun at her expense, and she decided right then to talk to Shikamaru instead. Who's babysitting? The girl next door that Temari hates, Shikamaru said, pushing off the door and allowing her to pass him. She nodded her thanks. You're staring at her. Sakura heard the murmur behind her and stiffened. Can you blame me? It's one of the nicest parts of her, Ino whispered back to Temari, obviously thinking Sakura couldn't hear them. Shika's is nicer, it's bigger and more to spank, Temari argued good-naturedly, and Ino gave a tinkling laugh. Sakura forced herself to relax. It was a good thing that Ino liked her, right? She didn't know what Ino was doing. She hadn't expressed any interest in her until just a few moments ago. Or had she, and Sakura just hadn't realized it? She started to go over every conversation she had had with Ino. Relax, you look like you're going to explode, Shikamaru said, glancing over at her when they hit the street. What? Sakura said, startled. Just enjoy the night, Shikamaru said, patting her on the shoulder. She's as nervous as you are. Sakura looked back to see Ino laughing and joking with Temari, seeming very relaxed. She turned to look at Shikamaru skeptically. She's wearing her sure thing dress, he said. That doesn't mean anything. She said she wanted to wear it before she got too fat, Sakura said, forcefully deflating the small bubble of hope that Shikamaru's words had caused. Shikamaru just gave her a look that told her she was foolish for believing such a reasonable explanation. Sakura looked back and caught Ino staring at her. She smiled and saw a light blush cover the blonde's cheeks. Maybe he was onto something. He would know Ino better being her teammate. She allowed her hips to sway a tad more provocatively than before. When they reached the theater, they were immediately shown to the box office seats. Shikamaru had smartly grabbed the aisle seat and Ino grabbed the other, leaving Sakura and Tamari in the middle. Sakura fanned herself with the program out of boredom. Are they going to do one of those mini plays before the real show begins? Tamari asked, leaning forward to talk to Ino. Oh god, I hope not, Ino replied, also leaning forward. Sakura felt trapped and tried to back into her chair for some room. They're all about some epic battle during the war. I'm all for letting new talent practice on stage, but if I have to sit through another defeat of the big bad, then I'm throwing my heels at them. Tamari laughed. It can't be any worse than that time when they did the Orochimaru, the snake's life through interpretive dance. Oh, I had forgotten about that. Ino snorted with laughter. Do you guys go to the theater a lot then? Sakura asked, feeling left out. We used to bring our dates here back in the days of our wild youth. Tamari grinned. She then frowned and scanned the balconies. In fact, I think Shika was conceived on that one over there, and she pointed to the second balcony closest to the stage. Sakura made a mental note to never, under any circumstances, sit at that balcony. She was saved from replying, and really what could she say to that, when the lights dimmed? 3 teenagers somersaulted onto the stage. 1 girl and 2 boys. Sakura's heart plummeted as she thought they were going to have to sit through another wrong rendition of the final battle. Her eyes widened. Are they? Oh, she heard the faint echo beside her. The young teenagers continued to strip until they were. Love, the blonde boy cried shrilly at the audience. Sakura didn't think his voice had even broke yet. Lust, the red-haired boy obviously wearing a wig intoned. Jealousy, the childlike voice of the female actor stood in contrast to her male counterparts. They chanted as one. Is that possible? Sakura asked midway through the performance, turning her head to see if she could make out the angles better that way. Oh, yeah, it's just difficult, Tamari said. It's better if you use shadow clones rather than another person. They tend to be more flexible. Sakura edged closer to Ino and away from Tamari. We never, she started, then trailed off as the mass of twisting limbs turned upside down. I don't think I could have bent that way, Ino confessed, mirroring Sakura, and turned her head. That's an arm, right? No, I think that's the girl's leg, Sakura said, seeing what Ino had pointed at. No way, her head's all the way over there. That's just wrong, Ino said. I'm glad we didn't try that. I think we would have killed each other. The actors climaxed or pretended to. Please let that have been pretending to, Sakura thought, and separated. Their sweaty bodies glistened under the light and the blonde boy stepped forwards. Now that we have shown you how these 3 powerful emotions combat each when joined in a single act, you should keep this in mind when watching the powerful performance, and he bowed. Oh, so that's what that was about, Sakura said, joining in with the unsure applause of the rest of the audience. They seemed as shocked as her. It must be new age arty crap, Ino said, also clapping. An expectant hush fell over the hall as the red curtains shuddered, then flowed open to introduce the real play. Sakura saw the woman on either side of her stiffen as the actress playing the heroine burst dramatically onto the stage. She was beautiful with long raven hair and a slim build. Her voice was smooth like honey as she lamented on the unfortunate situation of being in love with the leader of the rebels she was supposed to infiltrate. She was really good and didn't seem overly heavy-handed with her woe. Sakura was totally convinced of her plight. When the intermission came, Sakura was fairly energized. She followed the others out into the lobby where Ino was immediately grabbed by a furious Tamari and dragged off. Sakura watched them go in confusion before turning to Shikamaru, who also looked slightly angry. Okay, I'm missing something, aren't I? Yes, he said simply and walked away. Hey, she followed him to the bar. It's not my business to tell, he said, expecting her questions. It's not fair that I'm the only one that doesn't know. She whined, then stopped because she wasn't 12 anymore. She regained her composure and tried again. Shikamaru, if something's upset Ino, I want to know about it. Ino is my teammate, I won't betray her confidence, Shikamaru said, ordering bourbon. Sakura eyed the heavy drink and wondered if that was an indicator of the trouble. Shikamaru caught her look and said, "No, this is for the terrible play. Really, how believable is it that the guy that's supposed to be insanely powerful falls for the first girl he sees and doesn't suspect that the only reason she sleeps with him after meeting for 15 minutes is because she's sent to kill him? She could be a..." Sakura offered. "Then why does he compare her to the virginal priestess that rescued him when he was young?" Shikamaru countered. "He's very stupid and thinking with his little brain." Sakura laughed, though now that she herself had experience having a little brain, she could excuse his most thinking with it. Shikamaru tilted his head, acknowledging her point, though you would think as a villainous mastermind he would be planning for that. "He's not a villainous mastermind, he's misunderstood," Tamari said, coming back from wherever. Obviously she had had this conversation before. "Yes, of course, and that's why you forgive him for killing Zula." Shikamaru rolled his eye and Sakura gasped, "Zula dies?" She cried in surprise, "The Bandit King kills her." "Oh Shika, you spoiled the play for Sakura." Ino swatted him on the shoulder and he glared at her like a fat cat that has just been disturbed from its sleep. "Something tells me that finding out Zula's death won't be the thing that spoils the evening for Sakura," Shikamaru said, and the air seemed to freeze. Tamari was glaring at him and Ino. Sakura couldn't describe Ino's reaction. She seemed to have shut down. With a visible effort she jerked herself back into motion. "Let's go back already, the break's nearly over." Tamari nodded and dragged Shikamaru away. Ino made to follow them, but Sakura took her hand before she made it very far. "Ino, if you want to skip the rest of the show and get out of here. I know you want to find out what happens," Ino smiled. "So, tell me over coffee. I know a place that serves really nasty coffee that could keep you awake for days." Sakura smiled to comfort the frazzled Ino. "You'll let me have coffee?" Ino said skeptically as the usher called for everyone to take their seats again. "Just this once," Sakura said seriously, but a smile tugged faintly at the corners of her lips. "You're too sweet to me," Ino said sadly, and Sakura frowned in confusion. "Come on, let's go back. The second half is starting." "You're sure?" Sakura asked, her eyes darting around Ino's face to see if she was hiding something from her. "Yeah, let's go back," and Ino said, tugging on her hand, and Sakura smiled and caught up to her. She couldn't shake the feeling of loss though. Ino jerked to a stop as Tamari leaned against the door to the theater. She looked furious and stared evenly at Ino through narrowed eyes. "You should have went for coffee," she said, then turned sharply around and back into the theater. Ino swallowed, then smiled unevenly back at Sakura, who had grown weary. Ino let go of her hand and Sakura's brows furrowed, feeling like an important clue was whizzing by her. They retook their seats, but Sakura couldn't concentrate. She looked between her three companions. Tamari seemed to be glaring at the stage while Shikamaru seemed tense. Only Ino seemed to be concentrating on the play. Her eyes followed the actors with a hunger that Sakura crashed to a stop. She had only seen Ino stare like that when she had burst into her office and declared boldly that she wanted. Even then the look was watered down compared to the ferocity that Ino now ate the stage with. Sakura sat back in her seat and didn't say a word until the curtain fell for the last time. She clapped politely, but Ino stood and clapped hard. She followed Tamari and Shikamaru out, subdued. She still didn't fully comprehend what was going on, but didn't think it would be good. Tamari linked arms with Shikamaru as they left. The night had settled in and the street lamps had been burning a while when they got out. A stream of people flooded out the doors and Sakura grabbed Ino's hand to make sure she didn't get lost. Sakura was jerked back as Ino pulled away violently. She turned to stare at the blonde and Ino looked ashamed of herself. She tried to smile and moved forward, but Sakura stood like a rock in the middle of the still flowing crowd. "Sakura," Ino said, and her voice sounded small in the vast open air. "Ino." Sakura turned to find a woman hurrying out of the open doors of the theater. Most of the crowd had dissipated, but the few that remained began to whisper in excitement. It was the star. I knew it was you, she smiled wildly. Hello, Minako, Ino said, coming to stand by Sakura. I had hoped to run into you. It's part of the reason why I took on this show, since I knew it would tour your village, Minako said with a perfect smile. She looked flawless up close, with perfect skin and painted pouting lips of vivid red. Even her eyes seemed gold instead of a dull brown. I'm surprised you remembered its name, Ino said and reached to link Sakura's arm. When Ino had touched her before, she would always blush or feel warm. Now she wanted to shrug it away, but the move brought the star's attention to her. She stiffened under the stare that seemed to be her. The star's lips quirked in amusement as her eyes flickered over Sakura, and she had the distinct impression that she didn't measure up to whatever scale she had just been put on. How could I forget anything about you, Ino? And just like that, she was forgotten about. Ino gave a laugh and turned away. The actor danced around them to stop them from leaving. Ino, don't be so cold. I made a horrible mistake and now I want to fix it. Minako grinned, and it seemed charming and apologetic all at the same time. Things have changed, Ino said. I'm not interested in you anymore, and Sakura wished that was true. Yeah, I see you're wearing your little black number for someone else now. Melinda again flicked her eyes at Sakura like she wasn't important. Sakura gritted her teeth. Why was she here? How rude of me. Kina Minako meet Haruno Sakura. Ino stressed her name, the same YTV presenters and sleazy managers that had tried to use her to sell their products. And she suddenly realized her purpose. You're Haruno Sakura, the legendary blossom, and she felt herself be revaluated. I thought you would be bigger. Sakura looked away in disgust. She wasn't in the mood for this. I didn't even think of you. She turned to Ino. Are you finished? Her voice was hostile. Yes. And Ino smiled and they walked away. She could feel Ino strutting at her side and knew it wasn't for her. She swallowed hard. She was angry, not hurt. When they reached their apartment, Sakura threw her bag on the chair and kicked off her shoes. She didn't speak as she went to the bathroom and washed her face. She heard Ino rustling about the apartment quietly. She untied the black scarf and took off the bracelets. She fingered them sadly before setting them to the side. She padded barefoot into her bedroom. Ino was pulling on her pajama top but paused. She seemed awkward and unsure. Sakura gave a small bitter laugh. She went to her dresser and grabbed a night dress. Where are you going? Ino asked, sitting down on the bed. Couch. Sakura answered shortly. Sakura. Ino bit her lip and looked torn. Sakura waited, but when nothing came, she left. They seem to be a little too happy for me, so cue the drama. Thanks again for all the support, especially Kirby Girl 13, who seems to be my most vocal support. I'm glad this story is being enjoyed so enthusiastically. Sakura pretended to listen as her department heads briefed her of the situation in the hospital. She had her hand propping up her chin and seemed to be glaring at the man in the dirty white coat before her. He cleared his throat and tried again to read his budget usage statistics. She was an idiot. She didn't know what she had been thinking last night. She should have just walked away when the actress with perfect blinding white teeth charged out of the theater and into Ino's heart. There had to be history there. They knew each other, that was clear, but she bet that they had been together. Little Shika had told her that Ino had dated girls before. Minako seemed to be one of those. Ah, Chief. The meeting's over. Her secretary nudged her and she jumped. What? Oh, yes. Ah, you got the notes for this, right? She asked, trying to pull herself together. With her mental turmoil and Ino waking her up the last few mornings by playing music when she was taking a shower, Sakura was exhausted. Kei nodded and handed the papers to her. Sakura took them dully, then shoved them back. Put them on my desk, I'm going for lunch. Yes, sir, Kei said, hovering around her. Sakura knew she wanted to ask what was wrong and was glad her secretary knew when to mind her own business because she didn't want to talk about it. She pushed away from the desk and climbed out the window because she couldn't take the feeling of the walls closing in on her. She dropped from the roof into a crouch, startling nearby pigeons. They took off with angry coos, but she didn't care. Damn it all, she didn't even care that some drop-dead gorgeous actress obviously wanted Ino. That some starlet breezed into town and made Ino stare at her like she was a feast and Ino had been starving. She could live with the fact that Ino would date other people, she had expected it. She didn't think Ino would stay single long after the birth of the twins. She was realistic. What annoyed her was that, for a few hours, it seemed like Ino had wanted her in the way that she had been wanting Ino for the last few months. Ino had been nervous and attentive and even wore her little black dress, which was supposed to be a big neon sign of her intentions. Even Shikamaru had said so, and he knew Ino better than anyone. But as soon as that woman came into view, Sakura had stopped existing. It would have been better if she had never had a chance at all rather than being so forgettable in the face of what Ino found so desirable. She kicked the trash can in fury and it made a satisfying bang against the wall. She frowned and kicked it again and again until its insides had spilled all over the street. Sakura. She stopped and closed her eyes. Her embarrassment crept over her anger and she turned to see Tamari standing with her shopping bag close to her chest. Come on, and the blonde led her to the park away from all the staring eyes. Sakura could feel the pity in Tamari's gaze and didn't want it. She turned away. For what it's worth, I think she's an idiot. Mina's a cheating that she shouldn't give the time of day to. From the way they were looking at each other, it seemed like she wanted to give more than the time, Sakura said. I don't know what she sees in her. They met when Ino was in the city for business school. I think she was her first big love. Maybe that's why she always goes back to her when she come into town, Tamari said sympathetically. Did she was last night. She cut herself off because whatever question she was going to ask would sound pathetic. Did she even like me? Was last night even a date? I have to get back to the hospital, she said, wanting to be away from Tamari's pitying eyes. Sure. Tamari spoke in a soft voice like she was afraid anything above a whisper would break her. Bye. Sakura said, more out of habit than desire. Sakura had been making her way through complaint forms when they were scattered by a bag being hurled onto her desk. Her head snapped up and the glare she sent towards Tenten made the other woman's smile freeze. Tenten recovered when Sakura didn't immediately leap over the desk and strangle her with her hair band like the look in her eyes promised. Come on, she said, and the brightness in her voice was obviously forced. We're going out to get drunk. Sakura threw the bag off her desk roughly and began to sort out the mess of papers. No, we're not. Come on, it will take your mind off Ino, Tenten said, trying to drag Sakura into a better mood. Sakura's gaze was scathing as she stood and slammed her hands on the desk. You know what, Tenten? Not everything can be solved by alcohol. Sometimes you actually have to face your problems and stop running away like a damn child. Hey. Tenten glared, getting annoyed herself. There's no need to be mean. I'm sick of this damn place knowing everything about me. Sakura yelled. Who was it that told you, huh? The grocery lady. The ice cream guy. Maybe it was one of Konoha's various theater goers. Poor Sakura. She managed to get dumped before going on an actually date. Tenten's eyes slid unwillingly to the door and Sakura's rage flared through her body. She stormed out the office and to her secretary's desk. She had had enough. How dare this woman interfere with her life? She was her goddamn glorified golfer. She had no business sticking her nose anywhere near her personal life. Sakura, just leave it. She was trying to help. Tenten cried behind her. Sakura ignored her and snatched the phone off her secretary and hung up hard enough to crack the plastic. Kei looked up startled and Sakura's rage hit a wall. Kei had been crying. Her normally neat secretary was wearing a wrinkled suit and looked like she had forgot to brush her hair. Sakura glanced at the clock behind her head. 10:15 at night. Her secretary had been here before her when she came in at 7. In fact, she had been staying just as long, sometimes longer than Sakura herself this past week. Kei, is something wrong? What? No, I was just making arrangements for the school visit next month. Kei answered shortly, fussing around the paper garden of her desk. Usually it was tidy to the point of compulsiveness. She didn't even seem to notice that Sakura had slammed the phone down on her rather rudely seconds before. Kay, you're trying to write with a straw, Sakura said gently. Huh. Kay looked at the bent straw in her hand dumbly. She looked as if this was her first encounter with the drinking device. Kay, we're going out drinking. You're coming too, Sakura decided. She turned back to the hovering Tenten. Go get my bag. Oh, no, I should really get a move on with writing a report about the repercussions of introducing red safety signs as opposed to yellow. Kai tugged at her hair and put her head down. She seemed to be trying to hide. That's not even your job, Sakura said, accepting the bag from Tenten and reaching over to haul her secretary to her feet. If you don't come, I'm firing you. What? Kay blinked stupidly at her. Forget it. Let's go. Sakura dragged her out of the office. And she left me. Kay gave a bitter laugh over her beer. Sakura, Tenten and the barman all nodded in sympathy. There I was, just out of the shower, getting ready for work, and bang. I get hit on the nose with the engagement ring. Apparently I work too much. Me. The secretary. She's an ER resident, but I'm the one with the long hours. That's harsh, Tenten said, sitting back and taking a long drink of her beer. Women, they're just not worth it. Sakura automatically reached back to grab Tenten before she fell off her stool. She turned to the bartender. Am I right? Totally. He nodded. So what has you so upset, Chief? Kay said, waving drunkenly back and forth in her seat. I don't want to talk about it, Sakura said, turning slumping over the bar. Oh, come on, it'll do you good, Haruna-sama, the barman said, patting her shoulder. They seemed to be the only ones in the old jazz bar. The place had never been very popular as a drinking establishment. It was only the restaurant and gambling square out the back that kept the small bar open. It had been Tsunade's favorite place to get drunk in. Oddly, though she never gambled here, she staggered down the street to the more professional parlors for that. When Sakura was feeling nostalgic or masochistic, she would come here to get drunk, as it had black and white photos of her friends on the wall. The legendary heroes. She avoided the place for the same reason when she was sober. She forgot all about me, Sakura mumbled at last from the pillow of her arms. She just saw the actress with perfect skin and big, and I stopped existing. Apparently they have history. Who? The barman asked in surprise. Yumenka-san. Kai answered, annoyed. Oh, the Van Eno girl. The barman said cheerily, then frowned. Isn't she the legendary Blossom's girlfriend? She's cheating on her with some actress. He sounded scandalized. No, she's not cheating on me. Sakura shot up and the world spun. She continued on regardless. She spoke to one of the two barmen that were moving in front of her fuzzily. We weren't together. We never have been. I just really wanted to. I like the idea of being with Eno, but she prefers some acting. Ouch, the barman said sympathetically, placing another beer in front of Sakura. She seemed like she needed it. I have a question, Tenten said, raising her hand. What? Sakura asked. Do you actually want to be with Eno, or do you just want to be with Eno? Tenten asked seriously. Sakura's mind tried to process that, but she frowned and went cross-eyed. Huh. No, I get it, Kay said excitedly. She waved her beer and splashes of the amber liquid showered down on the confused Sakura. Do you like Eno, or do you just want to be with her because she's going to be a mother and you want her kids? Kids? The bartender asked with a frown. Yeah, she's having twins, Kay told him in a conspirator manner. Oh, congratulations. He cheered her. Sakura smiled proudly, then thought about the question. She shook her head and jerked her bottle at Kay, then Tenten. She didn't really know who she should be answering. No, I thought about this. It's Eno I like. She makes me happy. When I was impregnating her, she brought so much happiness into my life. She's very funny, and nice, really nice, though she can be self-centered and selfish, but usually she's just so nice. Sakura felt happy when they nodded along with her because Eno was really nice, and hot. She's really hot and tight. I thought I was going to be crushed when I was inside her. I mean, wow, in her, but you know what? I even think her ears are. Eno has ears. Her ears are nice, Tenten agreed, and Sakura clinked their bottles together. She nearly missed. Wait. Kei said slowly, you impregnated her. The fact that she's also has my kids is just a happy coincidence. Sakura said. Wow, you fell in love with her even though she was knocked up, the barman said in admiration. They all seemed to be having separate conversations. You really are a wonderful person, Chief, Kei said with renewed respect for Sakura. All other thoughts dropped. Sakura nodded and accepted the adulations as her due. Thanks. That's it, I'm cutting you off. They all turned towards the new voice. The only other person in the bar had been listening to their conversation since she slipped in unnoticed an hour ago. Shizune. Sakura cried in disbelief. Her eyebrows tried to crawl off her head in surprise. Hey, Chibi-doc, Shizune said affectionately, ruffling Sakura's hair. Sakura turned to hug the other woman but nearly fell out of her chair. Shizune caught her at the last minute and heaved her up into her feet. Shizune-san, what are you doing here? I thought you were chasing old bachelors in the Earth country. I'm happily married to a billionaire now. I came back to check up on my second-hand apprentice, Shizune said, walking them to Tenten's bar stool. She grabbed the other girl by the neck of her top and dragged her along too. New girl, join the train, I'm taking you home. Kei wobbled to her feet and followed. Sakura was still surprised. I'm so glad you're here. I need someone to take a refresher's course for basic antidotes. You could do that for free, right? Sakura asked as they hit the fresh air. This would give her a little more leeway in the retraining budget. No, I'm rich, I get to be lazy now. Whose place is closest? Shizune said. Oh, mine's down that way, Tenten called from behind as she was still being dragged. That way it is then. New girl, where do you live? Shizune called back. I don't know, Kei said miserably. I'm pretty sure she kicked me out as well as broke up with me. Okay, you're obviously staying with Tenten then, Shizune said businesslike. Oh, I couldn't impose, Kei said, then tripped and clung to the wall. Yes you can, Shizune said, not taking any protests. This is me here, Tenten called as she was dragged by her house with the blue roof. Isn't that cute? Shizune looked at the stained glass window of a yellow bath. It's darling. You have your keys. Yeah, somewhere. Tenten frowned as she fiddled about patting her pockets. Ah, here. Shizune snatched them off her and opened the door without letting go of Sakura. Which was good because she wasn't sure she could support herself on her own. There you go, we'll see you in the morning. Or late afternoon, whatever makes you throw up first. Bye, Shizune, Tenten called cheerfully as she dragged Kei inside her house. And now you, Chibi-doc, Shizune said, looking down at Sakura. Sakura grinned up at her from her slumped position. My place is, she squinted around to get the right direction. Forget about it, Shizune said, I still remember where your ratty place is. You haven't moved, right? Nope, Sakura said with a glassy smile. Sakura gradually became aware of loud upbeat music playing. She groaned and buried her face into the warmth at her side. Damn Ino and her music. The radio eventually clicked off and Sakura was all set to drift back to sleep when she heard, well, isn't this a pretty picture? Sakura opened her eyes to see Ino glaring down at her. Ino wiped her mouth with a hand towel, her sharp eyes trying to tear into Sakura. She smiled absently and moved to roll over. A heavy weight thumped onto the ground when Sakura realized that she wasn't in bed like she thought and her blanket was actually another woman. Ah, she yelled, scrambling up to huddle on the arm of the couch. What the? Oh, good, Chibi-doc's awake, the figure said, rising onto all fours. Chibi-doc. Sakura frowned. The only person that called her oh. Shizune. Sakura said happily, reaching down to help the woman up. Hey Ino, look, it's Shizune. You slept with Shizune, Ino said, slightly disgusted from the twist of her mouth. Sakura paused as she pulled Shizune to her feet. She took in her disheveled clothes and the other woman's and concluded that, no, of course I wouldn't have had with Shizune, she said with total conviction, then looked back for reassurance. Right. Right. Shizune vouched, now on her feet. Where's you kitchen? Never mind, I see it. You really need to get a better place. It's not like you can't afford it. Shizune said as she walked past the still annoyed Ino and straight into the kitchen. Ino glared at the woman that was making herself at home. What are you doing here? I'm in town for a visit, but I have the better question. Why do you, and she jerked her spoon at Sakura, seem to think you've impregnated this one, and the spoon jerked at Ino's affronted body, since I know you passed basic anatomy, I was your teacher after all, I'm pretty sure you know how reproduction works. So, that leaves two explanations, either I'm missing a really big piece of info or you're one hell of a liar. Shizune gazed steadily at Ino from where she sat perched on the countertop with a bowl of cereal. What? Ino drew herself up at the accusation, who the hell do you think you are? Waltzing back in here after years to accuse people of. Ino, Sakura cut in, massaging the blonde's shoulders to calm her down, don't worry about it. It's Shizune, she has no tact whatsoever. She seemed to have lost it with her marriage. Oh. I just remember, congratulations. Where's the ring? Shizune smiled and held out her left hand where a sizable diamond sat. Sakura fussed over it while Ino steamed behind her. Shizune basked in the adoration for a short time before she became serious. So what's the deal with you, Sakura? I can clearly see the twins from here. They're dizygotic, by the way, but why do you think they're yours? Dizygotic, Sakura said, stunned. She stepped back a bit and took a deep breath. Wow. What does that mean? Ino asked, looking from Sakura to Shizune. Fraternal, Sakura answered absently, you can just tell. Chakra scan, Shizune tapped her eyes and Sakura practically swooned. That's amazing. You're still amazing, Sakura said with a grin. Are we through with the hero worship or should I leave the room? Ino said snidely, not liking the feeling of being left out. Sakura took her hand to soothe her and her smile softened. Shizune, Ino's pregnant with my baby. They're my kids in there, Sakura said, and Ino pulled herself up straighter. She glared at Shizune, daring her to contradict Sakura. How? Shizune asked instead. It's really very cool. Give me a minute to get changed and brush my teeth and I'll show you my report. Sakura jumped and ran out of the kitchen like a kid eager to show off her homework. This is fascinating, Shizune muttered, sitting across from Sakura's desk. Sakura beamed. Tenten wasn't up yet, so they had to use the back way into the shop before Sakura continued on to work. Shizune turned over a page in the report and Sakura saw her hands twitching, half making the signs. She waited until Shizune closed the report. I never even thought this was possible. Internal change on the genetic level. Sakura, that's amazing. Well done. Sakura flushed, suddenly overcome by modesty. It was Naruto and Tsunade's, really. I just put it together. No, Shizune shook her head, they wouldn't have worked with each other. The binding technique you made is flawless. I don't think I've seen anything like it before. You could even use this to. Shizune's mind visibly whirled at the possibilities, and Sakura, who had longer to think about it, said, I was thinking that it could be used in conjunction with a cutting jutsu and a disinfectant. That way, you wouldn't have any bugs in surgery. That's brilliant, Shizune exclaimed. When are you publishing this? Are you waiting until the twins come to term and become visible proof, or is the patent pending on the binding sign? Actually, Sakura said unwillingly, she didn't want to burst Shizune's excitement, I'm not going to publish it. What? Shizune looked at her like she was crazy. Ino and I felt that the twins would come under so much pressure that it wasn't worth it, Sakura said, taking the study back. Ino and you, Shizune said skeptically. Sakura, a breakthrough of this magnitude just can't be locked away. Think of all the good it could do. Shizune, it's a change, not the cure for the common cold, Sakura said dryly. Yes, but what about all those people that feel like they were born in the wrong bodies? This is their cure. Or what about gay parents that want kids? And your binding sign, Sakura, the possibilities of that alone are astronomical. You've discovered something amazing. You have to share, Shizune said, feeling like she was pointing out what should be the obvious. And the twins, Sakura said like it was the most important point, they're going to poked and prodded to make sure there's no scam. Even then they'll be watched to see if a genetic anomaly occurs later in life. I don't want them to be a science experiment. Shizune gaped. Sakura, you could change the world with that. You're doing what I did at the start, Sakura explained gently, you're thinking of them as the proof of success. But they're little people, little half me's and half Inos. They're my kids and I'm not going to have some bitter guy with an inferiority complex or grudge against me following them around to prove that their aliens are crimes against God. There's also a price to pay for breakthroughs. Shizune waved away the concern breezily. But they're my kids, Sakura said to end the matter. Shizune sat back and thought about it like that. I suppose you're right. Listen, I'm going to go get changed. I'll meet you for dinner when you get off. Still, well done, Sakura. Sakura made her way through the vast never-ending ocean of paperwork on her desk with a smile. She actually might have been humming with happiness. She couldn't believe Shizune was back in town and that she was really impressed with her jutsu. She had made her teacher proud. She felt 10 feet tall. She looked up startled as a loud crash echoed in the hallway. Curious, she rose from her desk to see what had caused the noise. She found Kay frantically cleaning up her paper tray, which had fallen to the floor and spilled its contents everywhere. Sakura bent to help as Kay muttered apologize. Don't worry about it. I didn't think you would be in today. You don't seem like much of a drinker, Sakura said, then paused as her eyes caught on a particular sheet. You've organized a plumber for the When did I sign off on this? You wrote down the Kaio family's name on a sticky pad. I thought you meant for me to contact him. He was more than happy to redo the for free. He said he could get a tax write-off for charitable work, Kay said, absently placing all the papers back on her desk. She then frowned at the mess and set about straightening it up. Wow, you really do need a break, Sakura said. No, last night helped, thank you, and Kay smiled sincerely. It took my mind off things. You think it will work out with you and Sakura tried to furiously remember the name of Kay's girlfriend but drew up blank. She smiled at her uncertainly. Yuna. I hope so. We've been together since we were 17, Kay said, and Sakura felt old when she thought snidely that that must have been all of 2 years. No, she knew her secretary was older than that. She frowned. How the heck did she not know these things about the people around her? It'll work if you both want it to. She did mean that to sound comforting. Kay nodded but didn't look convinced. Sakura seized the pause to retreat back into her office. She had had enough interaction for the day. She looked at the phone on her desk when she retook her seat. She hesitated before dialing Ino's number. Hey, it's me, Sakura said as Ino picked up the phone. Shizune has invited us to dinner tonight. I just wanted to check and see if that was okay with you. She wants me there. Sakura could hear the frown in Ino's voice. I thought she would have wanted to catch up with you on your own. I want you there, Sakura said. You can be the conversation prop when we run out of medical things to talk about, she laughed. You mean I can be the normal one, Ino said, and Sakura swore she could hear her warming to the idea. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, she grinned. I had plans with never mind, I'm sure I can move them. I'll be there. Though I don't think I can fit into anything fancy, so not one of those big posh restaurants, Ino ordered. Sure. Shizuru will be mad, but I don't like those places either. I have to go. Be ready for 6. Sakura waited for Ino to say goodbye before she hung up. She frowned. She was sure that Ino had plans with Mina, the oh-so-wonderful actress, but didn't want to say. Sakura frowned as she pulled out Ino's seat. Ino smiled her thanks in his grim way that let her know that she was fussing again. Sakura made sure that the pepper was in easy reach of Ino but not the salt, and vowed that was the end of her fussing. Ino's clothes were stretched to near bursting point. Since Ino had always been slim, she was just more round than the average body weight, but it looked weird seeing Ino chubby. Her clothes reflected that as they seemed to be screaming. What did you have for lunch? Sakura asked as she placed her napkin into her lap. Sakura, Ino said warningly. What? Ino, you're nearly 6 months along and you're half the size you should be. Sakura said. Trust me, Sakura, I'm fine. All I seem to be doing is eating, Ino said wearily. I was arranging an order of violets and they started to get brown stains on them. It took me ages to work out that it was from my sandwich. It was just second nature to be chewing that I forgot what the hell I was eating. Sakura laughed and felt more at ease. Okay, I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. It's nice you care. Ino waved her fussing away airily. She looked at Ino. She did care. Ino stopped moving and couldn't look away from Sakura's intent gaze. Ah, lucky me, you two are here. Shizune sat down at the table with a sigh. I thought I might have to wait. Shizune. Sakura smiled but cursed internally. Shizune gave no sign that she knew she had just interrupted a moment. Shall we order? I'm starving and I'm sure Ino is too. It wasn't really a question as Shizune was waving down a waitress. We haven't looked at the menu yet, Sakura protested. Doesn't matter, I invited you, I'm paying. Shizune grinned as Sakura became flustered. The waitress came to stand with her pencil poised at the ready. We'll have one of everything. She turned from the stunned waitress to Ino. If there's anything you like especially or want specially, just tell the waitress. Shizune-san, we can't impose on you like this, Ino said, looking slightly panicked. Oh, don't worry, my husband's loaded, Shizune said nonchalantly. Her diamond ring sparkled. Ino oddly seemed to relax at that. So, she said, was Sakura the perfect intern? Prefect. Shizune laughed. Oh, definitely not. In fact, on her second week, there was a guy that came in with a genital rash. You had never seen anyone run out of the cubicle so fast. I thought we were going to have the first case of death by embarrassment. There she was ready to prescribe a 75-year-old man for bowel surgery when it turned out to be. Shizune and Ino were both grinning at Sakura's flushed face. Trapped wind, Sakura muttered, and Ino laughed deeply. He was complaining of stomach pains and there was a blockage in his colon. She defended herself. Which were all caused by, Shizune goaded. Excessive barley in his diet and not enough fiber, Sakura admitted reluctantly as the other two women laughed at her. She was pleased that the most important people in her life were getting along. She just wished they got along over something other than her embarrassments. There was a calm in their storm of laughter and Shizune folded her hands together in a gesture that was unmistakably Tsunade-like. Sakura felt a bittersweet twinge in her chest and had to look away. So, Sakura didn't notice the sharpness that had found its way into Shizune's voice and eyes. Ino, I'm told you're the reason that Sakura won't publish her breakthrough. Awful selfish, don't you think? Ino jerked at the attack that seemed to come from nowhere. What? Sakura could get fame and financial security from her discovery and you're stopping her. Let's not forget all the people she could help. You're denying them a solution, Shizune said. What Sakura did was amazing. She's an amazing doctor, but I fail to see how a change jutsu can help the world at large, Ino said slowly. You didn't grasp the complexity of her jutsu. And Shizune seemed to be sneering. She had never really had much time for dumb girls. I wouldn't say, Ino began, but Shizune cut her off. You wouldn't say that you're being selfish. Tell me, how else would you put quelling a medical discovery? Hey, Ino's temper finally raised its head. Hoodoo. That's enough. Sakura snapped, but it wasn't at Ino she was shouting. Her gaze lanced through Shizune. No, I can't sit here while your potential is being suppressed. Shizune slammed her hands down and her voice held just as much anger as Sakura's. They glared at each other in a moment heavy with threatening violence. Sakura stood roughly, scraping her chair back. Shizune followed her. Sakura pushed Ino gently back into her chair when she made to follow. They walked through the restaurant's kitchen and out into the back alley. The startled shouts of the chiefs were ignored. I told you to leave this alone, Sakura said as she faced off with Shizune. I can't believe you're allowing this. Shizune glared. This has nothing to do with you. Sakura yelled angrily, hating the fact that she felt like a teenager pointlessly rebelling against her mother. You're my student, of course it does. Shizune's lip curled in distaste. And why are we out here anyway? Do you plan on hitting me? Is that the solution you've come up with? Honestly, I thought you'd have grown beyond this. We're out here so Ino doesn't have to get stressed by you attacking her. Stressing out a pregnant woman isn't the healthiest thing to do, Sakura glared. She would never hit her mentor senselessly. She would be disappointed in you. Tsunade would never. Shizune's head jerked to the left violently as Sakura cut her off with a slap. She was surprised at her actions but didn't feel at all apologetic. How dare you, she growled. Tsunade would never endanger or discomfort a child for selfish reasons. For any reason. I won't have you disgrace her name by saying she would. She glared, and in that moment she could feel their twin hates collide. She was furious. Her face unconsciously had the exact same hardness in her expression when she had punched Sai for insulting Sasuke. I am not your student. I haven't been in a long time. Shizune slowly turned her head back towards Sakura. Her cheek was a blazing rude red that throbbed in time with the angry vein on her forehead. They looked like they were about to kill each other. Shizune wiped at her lips slowly. It had bled slightly from Sakura's slap. It's a good thing you're not my student, or else I would die of shame right now. Tell me, Sakura, you're so concerned about your children's welfare, are you sure you can say the same for Ino? How much do you even know about her? What? Sakura demanded in annoyed confusion. I asked around town since this whole thing seems so sudden. You had never shown any interest in women before her. It came as quite a shock to the staff to find out that you're not only with a woman but she's having children. What was Ino's sudden desire to procreate? Why did she choose you of all people, a woman, when any man would do? And if she's so concerned about the little ones, why is she wearing a glamour to make herself look thinner? Surely you explained the dangers of chakra use for pregnant women. Shizune had a viscous glee in her eyes at Sakura's stunned face. She would regret it later, but her fury clouded her judgment. Sakura's head rang with all the questions she couldn't answer. She was struck for the first time how little she and Ino knew each other. Her hesitation showed on her face and in her voice as her mind stuck on the last thing Shizune had said. She knows that using jutsu could hurt the twins, she wouldn't. Come on, Sakura. She enjoyed the weakness in the student that had seemed to self-righteous before. The remark about Tsunade had hurt and she was lashing out. You must have seen that she was far too thin for a woman pregnant with twins. Sakura had seen it and just assumed that Ino wouldn't genetically balloon out like most women. She had thought she would just need to feed her more, but unbidden teenage Ino flashed through her mind. The Ino that had always worried about her weight. That was always dieting, and the Ino that always frowned at her reflection no matter how many times Sakura told her she was beautiful. Shizune saw the realization dawn in Sakura's eyes. Her entire body seemed to rock backwards with the shock, and as horror drowned her pale face, Shizune felt instant regret. Sakura seemed to turn away in a daze, forgetting that Shizune was even there. She ran a hand through her hair and pulled absently. No, she shook her head. No, she wouldn't. Ino got to her feet as Sakura re-entered the restaurant. Her blue eyes were lit with concern that seemed to stab at Sakura. She wouldn't. Not the Ino she knew. She wouldn't risk it. How much do you even know about her? Sakura, are you okay? Ino went to Sakura's side since she looked ready to collapse. The doctor looked at her like she was fuzzy and out of focus. She reached for her water to give it to the other woman. Ino, you're not using a glamour, are you? Sakura asked, taking the water listlessly. Ino seemed to just freeze. The lack of movement clearly broadcasted her guilt, and Sakura felt her chest crack as her idea of Ino shattered and tumbled to the ground. She thrust the water into Ino's hands blindly and pushed past her and away. She ignored Ino's cries at her back. Hello, gorgeous, an inviting voice purred from the darkness of her apartment as she shut the door. Sakura clicked the light on to see the last person she ever wanted to. Mina jerked in surprise as she saw Sakura instead of Ino. She immediately sat up from her provocative position. Sorry, I thought Ino was back. Sakura's jaw clenched and she glared at the brunette. She was hurt and confused, and someone had made a convenient target walk in front of her. Did you have plans? A smart person could have heard the not quite right pitch in her voice. A half-trained Chunin would have seen the way her stance was geared towards hiding her coiling muscles that were ready to attack. Mina was neither smart or a ninja and didn't notice the many subtle ways that Sakura was threatening her. We had plans of a sort, and she smirked in a way that reeked. She seemed to be enjoying hinting at her lascivious intent, which only fueled Sakura's anger. We rescheduled for later since she had some work thing. Work thing? Sakura said, making her way idly over to the couch. She forced her muscles to move in a relaxed motion instead of ripping Mina's throat out like she wanted. And why was she hesitating? This was a perfect opportunity to scream and vent. But something held her back. Here was a person that knew Ino much better than she did. It was knowledge that she begrudged and longed for, but this woman didn't seem to care about Ino beyond. Yeah, Mina shrugged disinterest. I'll see if I can catch her up. I can take her to my hotel so we don't disturb you. She walked past Sakura, who could stop herself from shooting her arm out to the side. Mina collided with the steel limb and for the first time frowned. Latent instincts only now seemed to have registered that not all was as it should be. Mina. Ino closed the door slowly as she took in the situation. Hey. Mina smiled and went to Ino's side. Ino the kiss and pushed Mina away from her slightly. Mina frowned offended. I think you should leave, Ino said, not taking her gaze from Sakura. She watched her like she was a stalking tiger that would pounce any minute. No, why don't you stay, Mina? You know a lot about Ino, don't you? Sakura could hear the icy sharpness of her voice and sneered as Mina once again seemed too dumb to get the danger. You can tell me all about her past, and hey, I bet I can tell you a few things that would shock you about her now. Sakura, I know that you're angry, and Ino's voice held a panicked warning that Sakura enjoyed. What's the matter, Ino? Did you not want your bitch to know about your pregnancy? She thought snidely. No, Sakura snapped, taking a furious step forward. Mina flinched, but Ino held her ground. I'm not angry. I'm hurt and confused and furious. I am not merely angry. Mina, she growled, trying to seem friendly, did you know about Ino's condition? Condition. Mina frowned, glancing at Ino in fear. Sakura laughed bitterly as Ino said her name in warning. You don't have a disease, do you? And Mina actually backed away from Ino. Sakura grinned like a crocodile as her prey came closer to her. No, that's not it, Ino quickly assured Mina before turning to say again in a warning tone, Sakura. What? Her voice was venomous. She heard Ino's desire for her to keep her mouth shut. She just didn't care. We'll talk about this later, when we're alone, Ino said, grabbing Mina's arm and trying to take her out of the room. Talk about what? Talk about how you don't even care about our children. How you would endanger their lives. Or how you're a selfish bitch that cares about no one but herself. Sakura raged blindly. Kids. Mina said in shock. I don't care. Ino echoed in disbelief. A storm cloud of fury then darkened her face and she forgot all about Mina. She drew herself up to her full height, but Sakura didn't care that the storm hovered over her. She growled defiantly back as Ino stalked into the bedroom to reappear lightning fast with a box as big as her torso. She emptied it on the couch and thousands of bottles and devices spilled onto the fabric. Don't you dare tell me I don't care about anyone. She screamed shrilly. Sakura looked at the boxes in puzzlement but wasn't prepared to let go of her anger. Ino snatched a bottle up blindly. These are my iron supplement tablets that I take every morning before you wake up. These are the garlic tables that I take each night before I go to sleep, and these are the folic acid tables that I gag on every day because of their damn size. She snatched bottle after bottle and explained their uses before flinging them back into the box. She lifted a strange face mask and thrust it in Sakura's face. This bastard thing is a gag that I wear every morning so I don't wake you up with my morning sickness. The few times you've woken up to the radio or the mornings that I was violently ill but couldn't make it to the box. This is the ointment that I rub onto my ankles, which are twice their normal damn size. And this is for the ugly stretch marks that are taking over my stomach. These are the damn control pants I wear so I don't wet our bed in the night. Do you know how embarrassing that is? But I don't want to annoy you by getting you up to change the sheet. These are the herbal painkillers that I'm taking like candy because I'm constantly hurting, but I don't want to take it out on you in this. She held up the battered bunny that Sakura had bought for the children back when she thought there was only one. This is Chibi Sakura. This is the thing I batter when you're annoying the life out of me by breathing. I know that the homicidal rage that consumes me is wrong, and so I try not to take my mood swings on you. I've battered a bunny rabbit until its stuffing has come out. So don't you dare tell me I don't care. Somewhere in Ino's tirade, Sakura's anger had fled. She thought it was when Ino had began to cry. The blonde was annoyed at herself and tried to continue doggedly onwards, but her breath kept catching and stuttering. She finally broke down and sobbed sitting on the couch that was still half full of tiny bottles and gadgets. Sakura knelt before Ino and pulled her into a hug. At first the blonde tried to push her away, then hit her, but eventually she crumbled into Sakura's arms. Sakura watched Mina hover uncertainly before she finally retreated. She stroked Ino's hair soothingly, and it was a while before the blonde's cries became sniffles. I didn't do the glamour jutsu. I had Shika do it for me. I couldn't stand seeing myself so huge. I know, she said gently. She didn't want to fight anymore. She pulled Ino up and half carried the distraught woman into the bedroom. She undressed her patiently while Ino still sniffled occasionally. There was a strange silence filled with a weary expectation. Sakura decided that they were both too emotionally drained to talk about the multitude of questions that they probably both had. She stopped and stared at the saloon belly that should be much bigger. She trusted Shikamaru to not have hurt the baby, but couldn't help but wonder at Ino's actually size if the small football had leaked past such an advanced jutsu. Ino grew uncomfortable under her gaze, so she reached for the blonde's night dress and dressed her. Sakura bid Ino to stay as she dampened a facecloth in the bathroom and gently washed Ino's flushed face. She wiped away the tear stains and damped Ino's fringe playfully. The blonde gave a weak smile as Sakura guided her down under the covers and tucked her in. Ino shyly flipped down the covers on the other side of the bed and gazed beseechingly at her. Sakura sat and kicked off her shoes before changing into her own pajamas of black shorts and an oversized t-shirt. She turned the light off and got into bed in the dark. Her body was too stiff to fall asleep and she felt the tension on Ino's side but didn't know what to do. The small space had become a great gaping divide that seemed never ending. A little while later in the dark Ino shifted. Sakura didn't know if the blonde thought she was asleep or had found a reserve of courage. With the barest whisper of the sheets, Ino edged closer to her. She hovered near Sakura, her courage faltering at the final hurdle. The doctor debated reaching out, but something stopped her. She heard Ino swallow before the blonde swallowed and settled down on Sakura's chest. Sakura turned into Ino and the blonde reached down to entangle their hands. Together they slept. When Sakura woke up, she was alone. She wiped the sleep from her eyes and searched for her clock. She was sure she had the day off but didn't want to spend all day in bed. She sniffed as the smell of cooking bacon called to her. She pulled on a pair of jeans but left her baggy t-shirt on. She ambled into the kitchen yawning and stretching. Ino. She jerked to a stop. Hey Sakura. Ino nodded, trying to act normal. She turned with the frying pan to place the bacon on the plate, eggs sunny side up, right? Yeah. Sakura answered, stunned as she nearly fell into the kitchen seat. Wah. Ino blushed but pretended that she wasn't. Do you like it? Sakura reached up to touch Ino's short hair, then her beach ball seized belly. And was Ino wearing the ugly maternity clothes that she raged about? The horrible floral print didn't seem to be something she would wear voluntarily. You took the illusion off. Yes, Ino confirmed. And you cut your hair. The shock was still in her system. Well, long hair was getting too hard to manage with the twins, Ino said. And don't you have problems with looking so? She cast around for a word that wasn't fat. Ino's mouth twisted downwards and she sat down beside Sakura. Yes, and I'm going to need a lot of encouragement and love because I'm dressed like a blind hippie and am bigger than a cow. You're not that big, Sakura lied. Ino seemed to have doubled in size. It was odd, she actually looked like she was faking pregnancy. It was like she stuffed a giant beach ball up her jumper. Sakura wanted to touch it. Her hands itched and she couldn't contain herself. Her eyes flickered from the bump to Ino's face and back. Can I? Sure, but I don't think you'll be able to feel anything yet, Ino said as she turned towards Sakura fully. Sakura reached out excitedly and groped Ino's stomach. She hadn't been allowed to do this as much as she would like. It was smooth and warm with the curve of the pregnancy filling appealingly into Sakura's cupped palm. She pressed lightly against the flesh but was disappointed when the answering push came back. You don't think I can feel it? Does that mean you can? Ino's smile was marvelous as she placed both her hands on either side of Sakura's. It's like little flutters. Sometimes I imagine that I'm a fish tank. I think that's the best way to describe it. Sakura laughed at Ino's comparison but was surprised to find that she was slightly jealous. Her throat burned with the feeling of exclusion. She wanted to interact with her children and feel them flutter. Ino ruffled her hair comfortingly. It was like she knew what Sakura had been thinking. This update was so fast because I was promised pictures. You know who I'm talking to. Show appreciation. If you haven't seen it already, go to Kirby Girl 13's DeviantArt profile. She drew a picture in tribute to the story. Kirby Girl 13. Art Call Me Daddy Tribute 994210088. I hope the link works, it's really good. Thank you very much, Kaio-san. Sakura shook the plumber's hand with eternal gratitude. It was the least I could do for you, Haruno-sama, Kaio said, pleased and embarrassed to receive Sakura's praise. After you cared for my wife and protected our village for so long, it was an honor. Call my company anytime and I'll make sure you get a discount. I'll definitely take you up on that, Sakura said with a smile as they turned towards the camera. She had insisted on the media being at the ER's grand reopening. Not that the ER had even closed for long after the bandit attack, but this way the village was given a confidence boost and Kaio got free publicity for his business. It was the least she could do after he did such a big job for next to nothing. Haruna-sama, a reporter said briskly, is it true that you're dating Yumenka-san, the local florist, while she's pregnant with twins? Sakura was surprised at the question. I don't know what this has to do with the ER reopening, she said slowly. Is it true, Haruna-sama? He insisted. Yumenka-san and I are not involved in that way, she said tactfully. Then why is she staying at your house? The reporter pressed, and the harsh buzz of the other reporters added audio to his question. She's staying with me because she needs some help. We're friends, Sakura said as the wall of reporters pressed in around her. A microphone was pushed under her nose and she slapped it away. Two more replaced it. Who's the father? Isn't Yumenka a prominent member of the gay community? Are you yourself gay, Haruna-sama? Ah. Sakura backed away, spluttering and holding her hands up to defend against the incessant questions. She felt like she had been ambushed. She glanced around desperately for help. Her staff sprung into action and formed a human wall that allowed her to escape the reporters. She saw one insistent reporter punch a male nurse before all hell broke out. Sakura. Ino cried, coming to support the doctor as she fell in the door. What happened to your eye? Sakura touched the bleeding wound below her eye. I think that was from the TV camera, or was it the suspended microphone from the sound guy? What? Ino just looked confused. The media have clicked on that you are pregnant and staying with me. Sakura rubbed her jaw. She couldn't remember anything after throwing a reporter out the door and the bedpans started to fly. So, Ino said, frowning, then her eye lighted with understanding. I'm sorry, Sakura, I forgot that you're famous. What did you tell them? That we were friends, Sakura said, sinking gratefully onto the couch. Her face was pinched with seriousness. I told them that we're friends, but what do I tell them about the twins? Do I pretend to be anti-Sakura? Ino, I want to be their parent, not some friend of the family. I want people to know they're my kids. We'll say that you're helping me raise them, Ino said slowly, that you are their parent in that way. Sakura frowned, not liking that at all. So I'm just some stranger raising someone else's kids. Well, what else can we say? Ino snapped, just as frustrated as Sakura. Sakura floundered for an answer before realizing that there wasn't any. She nodded in defeat. You're right. Ino placed her hand on Sakura's shoulder comfortingly. I'm sorry. I know it's not the ideal situation. Sakura reached up to cover Ino's hand with her own. She leant into the blonde, then frowned. Have you been crying? She said in concern. Damn hormones, Ino said, turning away and wiping her eyes in shame. Sakura sensed that there was more to Ino's tears than that. Ino. Sakura, it's nothing. Just, Mina, Ino said, shaking her head and turning away. Sakura felt her insides bubble with hate at the name, but she pushed it down. What's wrong, Ino? Tell me. Ino's gaze was dragged back to Sakura's eyes and the truth was pulled forward against her will. She doesn't want to see me now. We've always had a passionate relationship, and now that I'm ugly, she doesn't want me, and the blonde broke down sobbing. Sakura gathered Ino into her arms, or what she could fit there. Ino was very big at 7 months. The blonde clutched at her jumper and hid her face in embarrassment. Sakura patted her back soothingly until she calmed down. I'm sorry, Ino hiccuped as she pulled away, I can't seem to get a hold of myself. I think that glamour worked on more levels than one. Don't worry about it, Sakura said softly, pushing Ino's short hair out of her eyes. She couldn't get used to the short locks. Ino gazed at her wetly. Sakura, her voice was filled with 1,000 deep thoughts. Their eyes locked intensely, and Ino seemed to be considering something before she sagged tiredly against the arm of the chair with a disgusted sigh. I'm tired, Ino muttered, hoisting herself up laboriously. Sakura felt like she had been denied some opportunity. She perched on the edge of her seat, unsure if she should let Ino waddle out of the room. Her unbalance struck her with paralysis, and the chance slipped through her fingers. She didn't even know what it was she was grasping at. She was stupid, Sakura thought as she stepped out of the way of determined shoppers. The theater hall was lit up grandly, its doors firmly shut against latecomers. Interruptions to the performance would not be tolerated, the frowned double doors seemed to state. She should just leave it. This way Mina was out of the picture and she could have Ino. She frowned at the thought. Ino wasn't something to have. BTU, she wanted her. She wanted Ino desperately. She wanted to wake up beside her every morning and listen to her grouch about the irritating, inconsiderate son. She wanted to fuss over her and spoil her. She wanted to listen to her laugh and bitch. Her fists clenched tightly and her feet were urging her to run. She could have all that. She could love Ino and be a real family. The idea of tucking her kids in after a bedtime story while Ino waited for her in their bedroom appealed to all her desires. She glanced down the street to where her apartment lay. She could just. What are you doing here? The suspicious voice cut into her thoughts and she turned to see Tamari glaring at her. The blonde sat her shoulder bag down on the ground and squared off against the doctor. Trailing behind her was Shika, who was fiddling intently with a puzzle box. The boy didn't seem to notice Sakura. I was just. Sakura shrugged, but her eyes tracked unwillingly towards the theater. Tamari followed her gaze and her frown deepened. Oh, I know what you were just doing. Leave it alone, Sakura. Ino is finally rid of that. You should be celebrating. You said a bad word, Shika accused, pulling his attention away from his puzzle box. He then caught sight of Sakura and a wide smile split his face in two. Sakura. He charged her legs and wrapped his chubby arms around her knees. Sakura laughed and ruffled his hair affectionately. She enjoyed the hero worship in the young child's gaze. We're going to see Uncle Gaara. Want to come along? Shika said hopefully. Sorry champ, but I have to look after your Aunt Ino, Sakura laughed. Shika pouted cutely. He glanced slyly back at his mother, then whispered conspiratorially to Sakura, Uncle Gaara is creepy. The sand village is also dead boring. You're way cooler. Sakura chuckled at the flattery. Privately she agreed that Gaara was creepy. But what about the sand castles you can build? That'll be great fun. Shika looked at her plainly. I am not a child, he said, deathly serious. Sakura, Tamari growled, drawing the attention back to her agitatedly. Ino is upset, Sakura said plainly, like that explained it all. For her it did. I want to make her happy. If Mina does that, then. She choked on that thought but swallowed hard and continued, then I'll do what it takes to make her happy. Mina is Ino's stupid infatuation. You're much better for her. Tamari glared and made it seem like an insult. No one likes a martyr, Sakura. They always end up dead or alone. You have to go out with Auntie Ino. Shika cried, sounding betrayed. He tore himself away from Sakura's legs. Why won't you go out with her? I thought you wanted her to be your girlfriend. I do. She reeled under the assault, but Ino wants Mina as her girl. That's because you're not trying hard enough. Little Shika accused, his cheeks flushing red in exertion. He squeezed his eyes shut. You're just a big fat liar. You don't want to be part of our family, that's why you're bringing Mina back. You're not cool at all. That's not true. Sakura defended, still in shock at the child's accusations. Yes, it is. Shika balled up his chubby little fists before her, yelled, "Lair!" and ran off. Shika. Tamari called, alarmed. She glared at Sakura before she picked up her bag and hurried after her son. She never did like me, a voice in the darkness said. Sakura turned to see Mina still in costume coming out of the shadows. Mina was looking in the direction that Tamari had run. Her eyes then flicked back to Sakura. I don't know what sick relationship you and Ino have, but I don't want any part of it. I like Ino well enough, but she's not good enough in the sack that I'm going to wrap myself up in this sordid triangle. Sakura's teeth grinded together and she decided that for the actress's health she would ignore the comment about Ino. I don't know why, but Ino seems to care about you. You should give her another chance. Mina raised her eyebrow mockingly. You really have no idea about what type of person Ino is if you're asking that. She has always been like that. Hell, there isn't a girl in the city that she hasn't tasted. We got on great because I'm just like her. The fact that she went and got herself knocked up just shows how she is. Though I'm surprised she slept with a guy, since she's always prided herself in being a gold star. If you call her again, I won't be held responsible for my actions, Sakura growled, flexing her hands. Mina threw her arms up in a gesture of peace. I didn't mean to offended you, but me and Ino won't happen because we've only had a physical relationship. I never pretended it was anything else. I'm not going to start now. If you don't mind, I have to go back inside. The male lead sprained his ankle, so I have to carry the show due to his understudy's ineptness. Ino cares for you, Sakura grated. Mina frowned like the blonde's feelings were an unwanted nuisance. That's not my fault. She sees something that isn't there. She did it the last time too. You don't deserve her, Sakura glared. I don't want her, Mina said simply. Then you're a bigger fool than I thought, Sakura said with a finality and left Mina standing alone in the dark. You should see Shikamaru, Ino called as Sakura set the table. He's so lost without Tamari and little Shika around. It's downright cute. Sakura felt the grin tugging at her mouth as she imagined Shikamaru wandering aimlessly around, not knowing what to do. Is that why you had me set another place for dinner? She called back. Yeah, I'll take it to him later. I offered to let him come and stay, but he said he wanted the peace and quiet. He's trying to be all hard and manly, Ino laughed affectionately. I thought that would take too much effort. Holy crap. Sakura had been turning away from the table to get the salt shakers, but Ino entered the kitchen half-dressed. What are you doing? Sakura yelled, outraged. Ino looked at her as if she was the crazy one. My hurt, she explained patiently, continuing to rub her. You don't do that in front of people. Sakura spluttered, holding the tea towel up to block the sight from her mind.